He's in. All right, gang. So I'm going to start a little bit different this afternoon, this morning, depending on where you are. I'm going to give you a little bit of I don't know what I was doing yesterday type of an update. So um, this is really exciting. There is an author. There's a book. Actually, this author has written a couple of books that I've read, but there's an author named Ben Hardy. Ben Hardy has written books like 10x is easier than 2x and Who Not How. Those two he co-authored with a gentleman named Dan Sullivan. And they're leadership books, right? And the premise behind 10x is easier than 2x is that it's actually easier to get your business to grow 10 times than it is to simply try to get it to grow 2 times. And that seems a little odd when you first start thinking about it, but Tom Wood has a vision for this company that we will be $1 billion company within the next 10 years. And actually, we're like 8 years away now. And I would argue that we will get there. I have no doubt in my mind that we will get there. So Ben comes in yesterday and he starts asking questions like, well, what if, and he's saying, I'm not trying to put pressure on you or on the organization or anything like that. I'm using this as a strategic question. What if the challenge was to get to $1 billion in the next 3 years? What would you have to do differently? What would you do to sort of push the organization in that type of growth? And what does it mean? What would it mean to say we're going to be $1 billion company in the next 3 years rather than in the next 10 years? And from a strategic standpoint, the whole point of asking a question like that is to help people sort of focus on what is the most important thing. Because I mean, 80% of our time ends up being spent doing stuff that, yeah, it's important, but it's not the most important thing. But if we could somehow strip away all of the stuff that takes up to 80% of the time, and we could focus on the most important thing, what is the absolute most important thing that's going to get us to that number, or to get us to whatever the goal is, get us to that result, all of a sudden it helps focus the mind and clears away everything that sort of takes up that brain space and an actual time space on our calendar. So, I mean, we strategize, we didn't come away with anything. Well, we did come away with some pretty concrete goals, but we didn't come away with just an incredible insight that says, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do. That ends up happening in follow-up work as we think about what does it mean to try to grow that fast, and what are some things that have to be done different if we were to try to take on that type of speed. Well, one of the things that came out of that, which absolutely has everything in the world to do with you guys, is what does it mean to have brand new franchise owners, such as yourselves, brand new franchise owners truly lean in towards becoming a $2 million business. Now, I say a $2 million business, that's not the end point. But as you've heard Tom say, and as you'll hear him say again when we're together at launch, this business isn't really fun until you get to that $2 million mark. And it's true. This is a tough business to break into. There is a ton of learning, as you guys already know. There's just a lot that you've got to go through. And I even describe stage 2 as just flat out hell. It is. I mean, it's hard. So what does it mean to get past stage 2, get into stage 3, put yourself on a trajectory to be a $2 million business as quickly as possible? And trying to understand why is it that people get scared of that, or what is it that keep people from being able to do that? So anyway, I'm going to, as our transfer in this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are, as our transfer in today, I'm going to ask you this simple question, and it's a different question than I normally ask for this boot camp. But on the heels of our discussion yesterday, for you, what does it take? What would it take for you to be comfortable chasing after a $2 million target? Maybe not in your first 12 months, but in your second 12 months. And again, I'm not holding anybody accountable to anything. This is just us brainstorming here. But what would it take for you to say, you know what, I'm going to do everything in my power. I'm going to 100% commit. If that means hiring design associates, if it means bringing office managers on, if it means bringing another van in, whatever it takes, I am absolutely committed to being a $2 million business in year two, not in the first 12 months, but in the second 12 months. And I'm not asking you to make that commitment. That's not the point of this at all. Um, but I am asking sort of a philosophical question. What do you think it would take for you to really, really want to commit to something like that? Or maybe you already are. So let's see. I don't want to call, I want to make sure that people have a chance to sort of think through that. So if somebody feels like they're ready to answer that question, I'll take you first, and then I'll sort of work around the room from there.
I think, Arlen, I could obviously to get to that point. Yeah, I am committed. You want to get to, more design associates. Your office manager needs to be full-time, but not to get comfortable. When you have a little cushion, you're going to have to take a risk getting that extra design associate, not to get comfortable and stuck in that mode. Well, okay, I'm making enough to pay my bill. I don't think any of us are doing this for that reason, but is to stay uncomfortable, which we probably will be anyway. but to force ourselves, not to go, oh, okay, I'm doing okay right here, to make sure we take that next step as fast as possible.
Got it. Good. Somebody else who feels like they're ready.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a quantitative person, so it's 15 appointments per week.
That's it.
Yeah, I think for me, I love the balance of quantitative and being able to take risks. I think it's thinking about alternative ways to find capital if you need capital to make it happen. I think it's finding alternative ways to generate leads and something that's maybe not been done before. For Seattle, and we have a pretty small area between me and the two other franchisees up here. We're already started talking about co-op. And how we can do that now versus when we have 4 or 5 more franchisees in here. So I think it's things like that are going to set us apart, and really figure out how we can help our pricing in that, so we can make, from a not just an advertising perspective, but also how can we share our resources to get supplier prices down and things like that. So I think that's just another opportunity that I want to explore sooner rather than later.
I like it. Who else is ready?
Yeah, I'll jump in. For me, it's staff. I was lucky enough to learn during the process of building my last business that I'm a heck of a lot better of a team manager than I am a salesperson or anything else. So the faster that I can start bringing on BAs and managing them, the faster I can grow the business. I think there's a fairly low ceiling to me personally on the road, but that's a John thing, not a FCI thing. So
right, good.
So for me, starting a business is a gamble. I look at it as a gamble, and for you to gamble, there's strategy in gambling. So my strategy in gambling is marketing. I would invest in marketing. You're definitely going to build your business based on how many DAs you got and good office managers. But I think I would invest in marketing, build a good community base point, so I can go to people across the pond where I am. So
Good.
I think.
Good. Thank you.
I think go ahead, Mommy.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. I know having a new business is not easy, it's risky, but we have to take risk to know what's the next step. Me, I believe in work as a team, build a team, and then having good customer service. Because if you have a good team, and then they're an expert of what they're doing, and you have a good relationship with your community, I think it's gonna help, because it's gonna be mouth to ear. That's gonna help your business to grow. make sure we have a good DA that are an expert and we work as a good team. We communicate. I think it's gonna be fast to grow.
Good. Thank you for that. Donovan.
Yeah, I think for me, coming out of the gate, I'm going to be a robber. I want to steal everything that I see other people doing well and just implement all those. And I just hear, everybody on the calls hit something I want to be better at. And so I'm going to steal all those things as my goal. So.
Perfect.
I think leads
So
and
our-
leads and capital just would be, once I feel good about those things, I want to start pushing forward immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say having a sort of reliable service and product delivery installation model so that we can, earn our 4.8 stars here locally, have great references, and then after that, it's scale. So it's another van and a full-time DA running that.
Good. Mike, you're not going to be right in the middle of the storm, are you?
I should be a little bit north. It's raining pretty hard right now, but it's pretty, mild, I'd say, but it's
Okay.
dark out. It's like it's 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Right. Let's see, who else?
Arlen, I'll
Linda.
go. Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's just the staffing and hiring, and being successful in that regard. I'm not too afraid of the risk. But this is the first time in a really long time for me that I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I'm learning a lot, but I've always had a really, really strong comfort level in all that I've done historically, where I just know it so intuitively and it's easy for me. And so I'm learning so much. So I feel like I need to ramp a little slower at first, because if I don't have confidence in what I'm doing, then, I worry that I'm going to hurt my 4.8 stars by screwing some things up that then get me off on a bad path. So I'd rather invest time in the beginning, make sure that I'm immersed in every aspect of the business, and then hire rapidly for people who can help me then drive it, but then I'll be more confident in my ability to just scale it.
Good. Good. Mike McPherson.
Yeah, I would say that, echoing a lot of the other comments, I think, the first 12 months, just really building that foundation, learning, absorbing as much as we can as we're doing right now, and getting comfortable, running the business myself along with the office manager, building a great reputation in the marketplace. And then, as others have said, assessing the capital needs and then going after it with hiring out on additional staffing with DAs. And then as Luke mentioned with the co-ops, I'm actually at the Naperville, Illinois Marriott today. We've got a 3-day Chicago co-op meeting. So certainly going to leverage the other franchisees in the area as well as across the country and best practices. And it's going to be important to growing the business in the future too.
Good. Good. Let's see, who haven't we heard from? Let's see, Scott Razoo.
Yeah, so I guess I think about it in terms of that the journey curve and bending that curve upward and to the left. And how do you do that? And I think people have mentioned most of the things. I think capital is probably first on my mind. The 15 leads per week or meetings per week is a pretty good way to quantify what it's going to take to get there. And then putting kind of the team in place, the hiring and the management of the right team to get those teams executing, so that you get up that curve as fast as you can.
Good. Let's see, who have we not heard from yet? Michael Pfefferman.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm definitely aiming there already. In fact, for me, this business doesn't get to where I want or need it to be until 3 million in sales. I'm already trying to think, how can I go faster? I very much agree with what a lot of people have shared, and the biggest thing on my mind is how can I clear time and space for myself to really get deeply connected with the community in a lot of different ways. Because I went out and met with Jeff Bell, who's doing 11 or 12 million dollars in sales, and the one thing that he said that made the biggest impression on me is that 80% of his business comes through repeat customers or referrals. 80%, you know, and I also know that from data that you've shared that the business that comes in through referrals is higher average job size. It's a much higher close rate, you know, so the more that, and that's our distinct advantage as the local owners is being able to really get connected in the community. So the thing that I think we might have to do different, that I'm thinking of doing different, is sort of what Linda said, trying to go a little slower on the sales ramp up front in order to A, get good, and B, have the time to really invest in connecting with the community in other ways. Not just in marketing, but in actually contributing to the community in ways that'll naturally lead to referrals.
Good. Let's see, how about Andrea?
Well, I think that there are many things like marketing, as everybody said, follow up customers, because that way you can get a lot of referrals, you get good reviews, and you can get more leads that way. And merchandising can help as well, and cash flow, of course.
Good. Leandro.
Okay, well, for me, my commitment is to grow the business. I think I need to build my team, do my networking, provide a great service. And my philosophy always is it's going to happen because I am going to make it happen. So focus and go forward.
I like that. There's a franchise owner in Arizona. Her name is Krista Farney. Krista Farney's philosophy is 1, 2, 3, I win. It doesn't matter. 1, 2, 3, I win.
Yes.
I like it. Let's see, Liz.
I like the way Jack said it when he was up of staying uncomfortable. I mean, I don't like it, but I like the philosophy behind it. But just that idea of kind of drinking from the fire hose, right? So if you have that mentality of like, oh, if I just had an extra week, I'm going to get caught up, right? And then things will get better. Like they won't. And I've just accepted that, right? It's always try to think that's 5, 10 steps ahead. You know, if you're feeling like you're on top of things, what more can you be doing to like stay ahead of things? So I like that drinking from the fire hose / staying uncomfortable philosophy. And I think for me, just to make sure I'm continually looking at how to scale that business is monitoring my cash flow. You know, don't want to let it go to zero or negative by any means, but making sure I'm still cash positive, but keep as much money as I can in the business in the early years to keep reinvesting it, right? So at what point, when's my tipping point where I can buy that second van, right? Or, you know, and start scaling up, investing more in marketing, whatever, you know, that happens to be. And then as other people said too, and I think it's very true here in Napa, where it's such a close-knit community. And I do think that kind of in-person word of mouth is that much stronger than online. I've never seen this anywhere I've lived before. But really making sure as much as I'm drinking from the fire hose, that's not showing outward to consumers, right? That's still kind of like great customer service, exceptional experience every time. Magically, it's like Disneyland, right? You never know all the crap that's going on behind the scenes. It just looks so polished and wonderful on the outside.
I love it. Mutu, how about for you?
Yes, I mean, I was thinking that people need flooring all time, and there are a lot of people looking for flooring, and we have to find a way to get those customers and provide good customer service. And apart from that, the whole team said every good point, and I'm lucky to be learning from you and part of this group, so I can grow myself quicker.
Good stuff. All right, let's see, Jeremy and Sally.
For me, surround yourself with positivity, surround yourself with people that that you can learn from all the time. Make sure that we're gonna set up a damn good team, and just never be satisfied. I don't know, maybe I'm too much of a big picture kind of person, but just failure's not an option.
There you go. All right, Sally, anything you'd add to that?
One thing that I think about a lot is that I think it's going to be very important to have good relationships with our installers. I think the installers are kind of key. I mean, they're the ones doing the job. They've got to do it right. And I think we need to be able to, I'm a little bit, I don't want to use the word scared, but, I'm looking forward to getting in with installers and finding some really good ones we can rely on. And then once I get the foresight to know, oh, well, I'm, working on this job, so I need that installer for that one. And, I don't know. I just think the installers are probably going to be a huge, huge thing, a huge chunk of, whether or not we're successful.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Let's see, Jorge.
Hello. For me, the most important thing is growing the number of appointments per week in an organic way through the networking. And after that, working the closing rate.
Good. Let's see. We talked to Miguel, but we didn't talk to Carly. How about you, Carly?
I wish that I had unlimited dollars to sign up for all of these great advertising programs, but oh my goodness. We don't, but if I did, that's what I do.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? I'm looking back through my list. I don't think so. Nope. So I'll give you guys a little bit of, I don't know, probably more information than I should. I've been accused of being too transparent, but I don't know that there is such a thing. So in the past, we have, even in the recent past, we have strongly discouraged franchise owners from hiring a DA too fast because we've seen it fail too many times, right? And what ends up happening is a franchise owner hires a DA too fast, and before you know it, now that DA has cost them $15,000 or $20,000, and they go out, and then it sours the franchise owner towards the idea of even having a design associate. And so our general guidelines have been, you need to kind of have a certain close rate. You need to kind of have a certain number of proposals per week. You need to kind of have this in place, before you decide to hire that first design associate. And although I think there's probably still some wisdom there, I think part of the reason that franchise owners don't grow as fast as they could is because of the limitations that we've imposed. And it's not a heavy-handed limitation. The reality is this is your business. If you're ready to hire a DA, you hire a DA. But that was really sort of a challenge for the team yesterday. What are the barriers that we've been putting in place? Not because we don't want people to grow, quite the opposite. We're very concerned that people grow and that people grow in a sustainable way and in a profitable way, right? And so that's one of the things that we're going to have to kind of, as a corporate team and as the ops coaches, Ron, Jackie, Cassandra, Joe, Grant, that's one of the things that we're going to have to kind of get our heads around is, when does it make sense to not try to inhibit somebody from growing as fast as they want to grow? And again, it's not that we've been trying to keep people from growing. It's that we've looked at the history and we've allowed the history to say, well, when I've seen people hire a DA within the first 2 or 3 months, that DA normally fizzles out because a franchise owner doesn't know enough to be able to train them yet. But you know what? There could be a different solution. Liz.
Question on the design associates, and I know that obviously geographically this is going to make a big difference in terms of like salary and commission and all that. But when I look at the email Savannah sends out in terms of like DA's landed sales year to date, things like that, right? So I get the top one is $444,000 is what that person's brought in to date. And I think what I'm struggling with is trying to look at, okay, so if I look at that as an incremental, let's round it to $400,000 in sales, if I think maybe 10% profit off of that, that's $40,000. but how much am I paying that DA? I feel like it's almost like a wash in terms of extra profit versus salary. And I'm like, that clearly can't be right. But that's where I'm just trying to start getting my
Sure.
head around
No,
kind
it's
of
it's a really good question.
numbers.
So I will tell you that I'm going to tell you that on average, and not even just the normal, I'll say the normal is for design associates to make 10% of their gross pre-tax sales, right? So let's throw sales tax out of this. But their gross pre-tax sales. So if a design associate sells $1 million, chances are they made $100,000 that year. Okay. Now, I will tell you that the structure of that $100,000 varies greatly across the network. So one franchise owner makes it 100% commission, which it worked 6 or 7 years ago. That really doesn't work today. But you will have design associates that have been in the system long enough that they're straight commission. They don't make a salary. It's 100% commission. You'll have other franchise owners that say, look, if I want a $100,000 guy, I'm going to go out there and pay somebody $100,000. Jeff Bell, I think Jeff starts his DAs at $80,000. All right. Well, you could argue, well, yeah, but Jeff does 12 million a year in sales. Yeah, he does, but he also keeps that DA salary about 10% of what their sales are. So he's hiring somebody that's going to be a minimum of an $800,000 a year salesperson. And if you look at his DAs, I'm pretty sure that every one of them is over $1 million in sales. So he's hiring at a caliber level, right? And he's throwing a salary out there to attract a caliber level that's up here. Then you'll find a tremendous mix. There's some people that'll pay their DA more based on 8%, but they'll use the other 2% to put together a really nice healthcare plan or a 401k plan or something like that. So the total DA compensation is going to be roughly 10% of their sales, but it's not necessarily not everybody does it the same way. Now, how do you make money? If you're giving 10% to the DA, how do you make money? Well, if you look at the franchise owners out there that are making money, that are really making good money, even after they've paid their design associates, their business is making 15 or 16% EBITDA. Okay, so it is absolutely possible to do it, but you have to scale to that point. Right now, you have a location. If you added another showroom, do you need a bigger location? No. If you added another showroom, would you need a bigger location? Probably not. So all of a sudden that fixed cost, and I use that in quotes because it's not, I mean, it's rent. So it's not really a fixed cost, but from a month to month perspective, it feels like a fixed cost. Your fixed cost, as you scale the business, you develop a great deal of efficiency around those fixed costs, because there's some things that don't get bigger just because you had another design associate. There are other costs that do, the cost of the van, et cetera. Just to give you, and this is another challenge for us, is that, we've always told people, look, if you come out of your first 90 days at a 35 or 40% close rate, you've done really, really well. And I still believe that if you can start your first 3 months and you're at like a 35% close rate, you've actually come out of the gates really well. And I personally still think we can celebrate that. But I would also challenge you to say that your goal should not be 35%. Your goal should be that you're going to land a 50% close rate at 50% gross margin. That should be your goal. If you can get to 45 and 45, okay, great. Then maybe you can take a breath. But the goal should be to get to 50-50. And if you can get to 50-50, now all of a sudden this business is really cool. And you start hiring design associates and teach them how to get to 50-50. And then you're not really worried about, I mean, you're always looking at how much you're paying people, but it doesn't matter because, I mean, they're bringing in the cash. Does that help, Liz?
Yeah, I think the latter part I kind of already knew, but it's good to talk through, especially as kind of just getting started and starting to actually put real numbers to a lot of these things that to this point have been theoretical. And then specifically kind of in terms of commission rates and things like that. Like in California, I know for sure it would have to be at least a blend of, right, a salaried position plus some sort of commission on top. but that's where it's just good to see kind of like what that total comp package generally looks like.
Right.
And then trying to figure out how to back into the math to make that work and profitable. Thanks.
Can I confirm one thing, Liz, on your thinking there? And Arlen, help us with this, but I'm thinking about the same type of stuff. And you're thinking of 400 grand in sales gives you 40 grand in margin, and that what you'd have to pay that person would be subtracted from your 40 grand in margin. I think actually what you're paying that person is already baked into that margin. You're paying them from, part of the 90% that's not your margin. So
yeah,
it gives you extra profit, plus you're getting them paid. I think that the thing that we need to think about is that how many months are we investing salary in them before they actually start to,
bring something
deliver
back.
enough sales to pay that back. Does that sound right to you too, Arlen?
It does. And I'll finish on this, and then we probably do need to actually do what we got to do today. But I'll just share this with you. If a design associate is not capable of selling at least, this is the bare bottom, right? If a design associate is not capable of at least selling $500,000 a year, this is not the right job for them. And really, they should be somebody that can do 750, 800, and they have the capability of getting over $1 million. Below 500,000, if you just say 10%, below 500,000 means that they're making less than $50,000, and this job is too hard to be a $50,000 a year job. It just is. So if you've got, obviously they're not going to come out of they may or may not come out of the gate that strong, but you're looking for a design associate that is going to produce the $700,000 or $800,000 a year mark or more.
They have to outrun their expenses of the van and that, right?
Yes, they do.
There are some fixed things that are going to go down per employee, but there's still some variable costs with the van, and
there are
fuel and
okay. Oh, good. So there you go. Lowest rate is 64.5. So that's who you're looking for.
I thought it was 55K. It clearly went up in the last couple of years. It's crazy. Good for those people, but not good for the employer.
That's right. Makes it tough to get started, doesn't it? All right. So today we're going to dive into production some. I'm going to spend all of about 3 minutes talking about commercial jobs. We're not going to get heavily into commercial today. And then we're going to spend some time, the balance of the time that we have, I want to spend in the tablet working. How do you do a carpet proposal? What does the seaming tool look like? I know some of you have already started getting into that, but I want to make sure that I do that. And then there were a couple of you that had dropped some questions in the group me that I said, hey, remember them and do them in boot camp. And I want to make sure that we cover those. If we don't, I'll do them in a Loom video for you, but it'd be good for us to do it and do it live. So when we think about production management, there were several of you that talked about when we were transferring in that talked about finding great installers. You talked about doing a top, a 5-star customer service. You talked about making sure that you have a delivery system that's actually going to deliver on okay, these are my words, a delivery system that's actually going to deliver on the promises that you made in the home. All right. So this is not the last time we're going to talk about production. As a matter of fact, we're going to circle back around to production several times. Right now, all I really want to do is tee up for you. These are the things about the production management system that you need to make sure you have in place before you start the business. So we're not going to cover, well, what happens when this, okay, well, we'll get to that when that's more appropriate. But for right now, what's the most important thing? Well, the most important thing is making sure that we're set up and ready. So before you launch your business, it makes a lot of sense for you to start looking for installers. Now, I say hire installers, but the reality is right now you're just a roomer. You don't have a job for them yet. They probably are not going to spend a lot of time with you right now because you don't have anything to give them yet. Right now, you're just a rumor of some jobs that might come up in the future. But it does make sense to at least start to put some names with different categories. And these are people that you can start to reach out to. And obviously, these are people that you can validate your price list with. And to go ahead and set up the basics of the production management system. At launch, so when we're back together in Atlanta, We're going to spend time talking about work orders and how do you order materials and how do you manage installers and establish consistency. So we're not going to touch these today, but I will show you, if you want to jump ahead, I will show you where you can find all the resources. Okay, so I'm not hiding anything. It's just I want to make sure that we're covering things when it makes sense to cover them. All right, so when we think about installers, I want to hear from you guys. Who are the types of installers that you're looking for? And by type, I don't mean the type of person. I mean the type of work that they do. So you need a carpet installer, right? Okay, so that's one. What else are you looking for?
Hard surface.
Okay, hard surface. Be more specific.
Hardwood.
Laminate. Yeah, laminate, vinyl, hardwood.
Okay, laminate, vinyl, hardwood. What else?
Maybe like a refinisher.
Tile. Yep, a refinisher for sure. Okay, so when you think about the types of installers, you're going to have a carpet installer. You're going to have somebody that can do hardwood, and normally, so bamboo and cork are sort of subspecialties of hardwood. Normally, whoever it is that does hardwood is going to be able to do bamboo and cork as well. You won't see a lot of that, but you will see it from time to time. Laminate, which is often done by the hardwood person, and the luxury vinyl is often done by the hardwood person. You're going to eventually need to find somebody that can do sheet vinyl. Now you probably won't do a lot of sheet vinyl. It's a category that's sort of dying, but it's still out there. So normally it's your carpet guy that'll do sheet vinyl because they're accustomed to doing seams. And then you're probably going to need a tile and natural stone person and a sand and refinish guy. So when you get started, how many crews does this look like to you?
3 or 4.
Yeah, it's probably 3 or 4, right? You've got somebody that can do carpet and sheet vinyl. You've got somebody that can do the hardwoods, the laminates, the luxury vinyl planks. Then there might be somebody that's separate that does tile. Tile guys tend to just stay with tile. Even if they can do other things, the tools and equipment that you need to do tile are very different than the tools and equipment that you need to do hardwood. So oftentimes somebody will sort of specialize in one type so that they have those tools in the truck. And then you will need a sand and refinish person, especially if you're up in the Northeast. I imagine, John, you're probably going to see a lot of business for sanding and refinishing existing hardwood floors. I mean, it's all over the country, but the Northeast in particular. Okay, so now let's think about installers for a moment. What are some key things that you want to know about your installers? What are some things that you're looking for when you're looking for an installer?
Reliability.
Okay, reliability. I heard somebody say license. Yeah, what else?
The quality of their work.
Okay, so how can you confirm the quality of their work?
Reviews, online pictures and before and afters, things like that.
Okay, good. What else are you looking for?
Punctuality.
What was that, Miguel?
Punctuality.
Oh, punctuality. That's a big deal. Yep.
Customer service, how they deal with the end customer.
Okay. What else is important to you? I mean, like you personally, what would be important to you if you wanted to find an installer?
Somebody to like build a business with and a partnership.
Okay, I like that. Yep. Jeremy?
Integrity. These people are the face of our business, so they have to have good communication skills and high customer service.
100%.
I'd say experience so that they've done these types of projects several times. They've actually had the opportunity to find surprises on the job and then know how to deal with things that come up that are unexpected.
Good. All right, so these are just some thoughts, right? This isn't a complete list, but the first question I ask is this somebody that I would want in my own house? I mean, or maybe to put it a different way, is this somebody that I would allow to go into my mother's house if my mother was there by herself? Right? It's just, is this somebody that I feel comfortable with, just straight up comfortable? Okay. I personally like interviewing installers. And run them by my wife and let her do the creep test. Anybody know what the creep test is?
The hairs on the back of your neck stand up when you talk.
Come on, Carly, tell me.
It's very similar to those questions about, are you going to be home alone? And will anybody else be with you?
Yep. I mean, let's face it, if I take an installer and I just 10 seconds, that's all it takes is 10 seconds. If I introduce this installer to my wife and all of a sudden the hairs on the back of her neck stand up and this is not somebody I feel comfortable with, well, you know what? They're not going to be one of my installers. Because if they do that with my wife, they're going to have the same, they're going to give off the same vibe to my customers. And I'm sorry, but I can't have that in my business. They might be perfect, but they're not. Do they look and dress professional? Now, obviously, I'm not expecting them to show up. I mean, this is a stupid picture of some guy over here in khakis, but I don't expect them to wear khakis and dress, a dress polo. Or I mean, come on, they're installers. But I also expect that they wear a shirt. I mean, that'd be a nice thing. I expect that the shirt be, when I say clean, I mean at the start of the day. I expect it to be clean. I expect them to smell okay. And by that, yes, we can talk about body odor, but if they're a heavy smoker and they've just got the smell of smoke just embedded in their clothes, that annoys customers. I mean, it's little things, right? It's absolutely little things. Are they going to be reliable? Are they going to show up on time? Do they pay attention to detail? Can your customer trust them? Do they have insurance and can they prove it? So how would
on
you,
that insurance
yes.
point really quickly, like I know in Washington you can look up a contractor, and so some of the things as I've been looking, one, it's been helping me try to find installers by just looking up people who have flooring contracting licenses. But like, would you trust like the state insurance website that shows that they have valid insurance and both liability and bonds and things that you need, or would you want them to prove it as well?
So I asked my installers to add me as an also insured on their policy. And it doesn't, I mean, normally it doesn't cost anything, but honestly, even if there was a small cost, I would pay it. I'd pay that small incremental cost. And the reason that I want to be listed as an also insured on the policy, when I get listed as an also insured on the policy, if they allow their insurance to lapse, I also get notified. And so having the installer add me as an also insured, now I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, you may not have the leverage that you feel like you need to get that done. So you might end up sort of holding your breath and hoping that things work out. But the sooner that you can get to a point of leverage, and I'm going to help you with how to word some things to get you there quickly, but the sooner you feel like you've got some leverage with an installer to say, no, this is what my requirements are, and you don't feel like you're being held over a barrel because this is the only guy I could find, the better your business is going to be.
Is that a two-way street, Arlen? Do the installers ever ask that they be added to yours, or do you automatically? Okay.
No, they don't need to be added to mine.
Okay.
I assume in the very beginning you can like request a copy of their insurance, and if you want, you can call that insurance company to verify. I mean, obviously that's work, but if you're only dealing with a handful of installers in the beginning and you do want to dot the I's and cross the T's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was John that said that he wants to create, how did you put it, John, that you want to create a relationship with your installers? You want a partnership with your installers, right? I think that was the word you used, was partnership.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And I am 100% behind that. I will tell you that there's one of my, I mean, they're not my installers anymore, but one of my guys still lists my wife as his emergency contact. I mean, it's just, we got to be that close with people. And it's, when you treat people right and they want to work with you, I mean, you end up being involved in their lives. Now, I'm going to share with you an installer interview form. Some of you may have already found this, but I'm going to share this with you as you're talking with installers. This may help you. But I'm going to start by showing you where to find it. So if you log into 411 and as always, I'm going to go to the library. So dashboard and library. And then when I'm in the library, I'm going to the franchise owner's manual. And in the franchise owner's manual, there's a whole section called Production Management System and Tools. This Production Management System and Tools folder. And all these things that we're going to be talking about today live in here. And as a matter of fact, there's a couple of PowerPoints in here that if you wanted to jump ahead and say, oh, wait a minute, I want to go ahead and get to the end of the book quickly. You can download like this inspired delivery system or download this building your production machine, and you're going to find a lot of the information that we're going to eventually go through. But if you want to jump to the last chapter, it's all right here. So up here at the top, there's a subdirectory called Installer Hiring and Resources. And so when I look at this installer hiring sheet, there's a little PowerPoint here that's great, but I'm looking for this installer interview form. So when I open up this installer interview form, and of course it just downloads, so here we go. And it probably goes to the other screen. There it is. Move it over. All right, so this is an installer interview form, and you'll notice that it's in Microsoft Word. So it is intended for you to be able to make changes and edits to it. So I want you to be able to localize it for your own location. So you've got Floor Coverings International, your location, that's great. So what's the name of this installer that you're interviewing them? By the way, where do you think it makes the most sense to interview somebody like this? How would you interview an installer?
I mean, probably have to meet them where they are, but I mean, it could be a coffee shop, it could be at over the phone, whatever makes sense.
Could be.
I'll do it at the warehouse.
At the warehouse? See, I really like meeting them at one of their jobs. So I'm not going to wear my Floor Coverings International shirt. I'm going to just show up in a unbranded, a completely unbranded. But maybe I've talked to them on the phone and said, "Hey, can I meet you at one of your job sites?" Most of the time they'll say, "Yeah, sure. I'm going to be working so and so tomorrow, or I'm here today or whatever," and then just meet them at the address where they're going to be. I like that because it gives me a chance to see how they work. It gives me a chance to take a look at their van. It gives me a chance to see if they're organized, if they're messy. And most installers, I mean, unless they're working in a house that you really can't show up in, most of them like to show off their work. So I like taking them pizza or taking them a sandwich or something. Take them something to eat for lunch. If there's nobody else that's interviewing them that's going to bring them food. So I kind of like just doing something a little different even at the interview. So show up at the job site. And then you've just got a set of questions here. I'm not going to read through every one of these. I'm going to point out some of the key ones. But like at the top, what kind of flooring do you install? Carpet, hardwood, laminate. So there you go. How long have you been in business? How many crews do you have? You don't have to use this sheet. This is sort of a guide, Do you have your own work van? I like this question. Do you have your own tools and what do you rent? So like if I'm trying to interview somebody that does sand and finish work, they're going to refinish hardwood floors. If they're renting their sander from Home Depot, they're out because those rental machines are never taken care of the right way, and you'll end up with grooves and scratches and stuff in hardwood floors. So, I don't care if they rent some things, but like a sander, no, they need to have their own sander. Do you have formal training? Do you have a warehouse? Let's see. Will you dispose of stuff? All right. So am I arranging for a dumpster or are they okay with taking it to wherever? What appliances can you move? Now, this might be state dependent as well. I know in South Carolina, even if they felt comfortable doing it, they can't do a gas stove or a gas dryer. But it's not allowed here. Let's see. What do you supply? Can I see your work vehicle? So again, even if I just show up at the job site, well, I don't have to ask this question because I see it. And if I look in the back of it, I don't mean crawl up in it, but if I look in the back of the van, I just take a quick glance. I can see if it looks like their tools and stuff are organized, or if it looks like everything is just thrown in there. Stop me at any point with these if you have questions about the questions as you're looking through these. You know, pricing, do you move furniture? Can you paint, stain, trim? There's a couple in the carpet one that are no non-negotiables for me. Like, do you have a power stretcher? Well, for most of your carpets, power stretching is a requirement of the warranty. So they have to be able to use a power stretcher. If they look at me and say, what's a power stretcher? Then I know this isn't the right person. Yeah, Jeremy.
So I understand that, you know, a face-to-face interview, for lack of a better term, is the best scenario. But what if that you just can't make that happen in somebody's schedule? Has anybody ever just sent this via email to their installer?
I'm sure somebody has. I'm not sure how effective it would be, but I'm sure somebody has. Let's see. Another non-negotiable for me is, do you vacuum your jobs? All right, so I'm going to leave this to the group and see where everybody's critical thinking is. Why do you think that's a non-negotiable for me? It doesn't have to be for you, but why do you think that's a non-negotiable for me?
I mean, some carpet's going to start to pill right away, and if you're not vacuuming, it's gonna show that, and customers are going to look at it and be like, "What's going on here? My carpet's not installed correctly."
Could be.
Also, just means they're just messy people. If they're not it just should be like inherent to their job function that as soon as you make a mess, you clean it kind of vibe.
Could be. Could be. Yeah, for me, the reason that that's a non-negotiable is because every now and then, and it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then when a carpet gets installed, there'll be one hair sticking up, right? There's just one little hair sticking up, and you don't know it until you vacuum it. So when that one hair is sticking up, what's the solution? Well, the installer goes over with a pair of scissors and trims it. It's not a big deal. But if they don't vacuum it, and then the customer finds that one little hair sticking up, now all the questions come, right? Oh, this is a warranty. If this is bad, then maybe there's others bad. My carpet's starting to come apart. So I want to make sure you really don't know if the carpet's right until you vacuum it.
Arlen,
Vinyl.
before you move on,
Yes.
from in the carpet section, the top couple questions look like you might actually be shipping things directly to your installer versus having them pick up.
You could.
So that's just
depending
optional.
depending on what kind of setup they've got. Yep.
Arlen, some of the questions I've gotten I haven't used this form yet, but as I've talked to installers and gotten into some of the details of the work and hearing about their displeasures and how they get paid from some competitors, is there some stuff that is going to kind of be in their, per unit rate, and some stuff would be a little bit different, like moving a toilet or something like that. Because how have you seen it, or what stuff is generally sort of bunched into the per unit rate, like per square foot of tile or per square yard of carpet versus, an extra sort of bill above item? Because that's, as I've talked to them, I've said, look, I want to be fair to the people who do the work. If you do the work, you get paid for that work. So it's not, I don't look at your per square foot rate as a smorgasbord, like some of our competitors do, as they've been reported to me. But I am curious about, some of this stuff, like, do you have a power stretcher? Well, you can't install carpet without it, so you have to have it.
Right. So in terms of what they bring, right, in terms of what's reasonably expected for them to bring, and we're actually gonna dive into this question a little deeper, but generally speaking, if it's supplies for them to do the job, it's normally on them to bring it, and most of the time they want to bring it. For example, on carpet, the seam tape. Well, you're not going to know what seam tape they want to use, and there's different brands, and different installers have different preferences on what brand of seaming tape they use. Okay, they bring their own seaming tape. But what about tack strips? Well, my guys would carry a few tack strips. So if it was a matter of we're pulling carpet out and putting carpet in, maybe there's 1 or 2 tack strips that need to be replaced, and they're happy to go ahead and just do that. But like if you're doing the whole house and it's brand new, so you've got to put all new tack strips, you're probably bringing those because they're not going to carry. That's not a normal thing that they're carrying. You know, things like the nails for their nail guns or the staples for their staple guns. I mean, those types of just consumable supplies, I expect them to have.
Okay.
Good question.
And things like, you know, stuff that generally we would build separately into the inspired sale would be something that would pass through to the installer if they're the ones actually doing that labor.
Yep. It would be.
Okay.
Now there's going to be things that you've got to have, you'll have to have a discussion with the installers. For example, transitions. Well, some installers just consider installing transitions as part of the job. So it's in their per square foot rate. I'm going to do the transitions. Others might give you a lower per square foot rate, but then charge you separately for installing the transitions. Okay, it's fine. It works out both ways.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yep. So again, I'm not going to read through these line by line, but I want you to know that this is out there. It's in Microsoft Word, so you have the ability to change it, to do what you need to do with it. Mike, I'll show you, this is another one that's out there, is this material supply agreement. Okay, so you'll probably like this one. When I open this guy up, and Mike McPherson has his hand up while I'm opening this.
Yeah, so Arlen, I know there was a question there about the size of the crew. So as we're recruiting for the size of jobs that we do, we're typically looking for someone who manages a team of, I don't know, 3, 4, or you can find more individuals that you would assemble a team put together.
Well, so I'm not looking for the guy that has 20 crews that work for him. Okay, then I'm just paying a middleman, right? But if there's somebody that works with 2 or 3 other people, I'm fine with that. It's just I don't want to pay the middleman to manage the installers. That I'm going to manage the installers.
And how many install? Like, when are we going to know how many installers we need? Is that going to be part of the training, or is it going to come as we do our jobs?
Well,
learning.
So you'll to get started with, you'll need somebody for carpet, you'll need somebody for most other hard surfaces, you'll need somebody for tile, and you'll need somebody for sand and finish. So you're looking for 4 crews. Now you're always, just like you're always going to be looking for design associates, you're always going to be looking for installers. So just because you have those 4 doesn't keep you from continuing to look for them. It's just you need those 4 to get started with.
Okay, so if you're doing a third job, you would need 2 or 3 guys to do that one job together.
Well, that installer is going to find a helper.
Okay.
All right. So this file, this is not, how do I put this? This is not a file of answers. This is a file full of questions. So this is not, I'm not telling you that you have to supply these things and that your installer has to supply these. This is in fact, we'll just delete that for now. This is where you sit down with the installer and say, okay, what is it that we're going to provide? I don't necessarily mean take it to the job site, because most of the time the installer comes to your warehouse and picks it up. So I'm not talking about who's going to take it to the warehouse. I'm talking about who's going to make sure that it shows up, right? So I would say that, you need to make sure that this shows up. You probably need to make sure that the pad shows up. Transitions, the installer doesn't know what transitions they need. You're the one that saw the house, so maybe that's normally for you to do. Tack strips, maybe that's the installer to do, unless it's the whole house. And then you put a note in here that says, if it's the whole house, I'll bring them or I'll supply them. Seaming tape, that's for them to do. Glue sticks, that's for them to do, right? Again, these are questions, not answers. So you decide, you know what, if we're going to glue down carpet, yeah, I have to make sure that I bring the carpet. But you know what, carpet adhesive, it's all the same anyway. You can pick whatever you want to use and just bring it to the job site and roll that into your labor cost. Okay, good. Well, then that's done. And transitions, yeah, I'll make sure that I have those. So this becomes a discussion with the installer, right? What am I going to make sure is here, and what are you going to make sure is here? And I mean, I don't get into nails and that sort of stuff necessarily. But for example, and again, I'm going to delete this because this becomes questions. Who's going to make sure that we have the right hardwood? Well, that's going to be me. How about the right underlayment? You know what? I tell my installer, we're always going to use Aquabar. You can pick it up on your way in. Okay. And then you just work down through the questions. Yeah, Linda.
Just a quick question, Arlen, maybe a stupid question, but you talk to the installer and you go through this list and they say normally they charge $2 a square foot, what have you. Is that, or after each job that they're done then, are they telling you what that job cost them, or are you automatically assuming, okay, it's $2, we agreed to $2? How is that negotiated or navigated? Maybe they added extra tax strips that we didn't account for. How does that all get addressed?
Yep. All right. Good question. So we're jumping a little bit ahead, but it's okay. This is one of those cases. I'm going to give you the 30-second answer, and we're going to dive deeper down the road. So the 30-second answer is, I'm going to always give my installer a work order. Okay. So here's a work order template. This is a filled out example of a work order template. And when I open this guy up, now this work order is purposefully about half done. That'll make more sense later, but this work order is not 100% complete. It's about half complete. So this is the way that I would expect a design associate to be able to do a work order. As soon as this opens up. All right, so let's move this over to the big screen. Now, without getting into too much detail, this is the documentation that I'm going to give my my installer. So down here, up here is going to be the bill of material, and what we're doing down here is going to be, this isn't the one that I wanted. Anyway, down here is going to be a list of, this is what I want you to do. So you're going to move the furniture, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And whoever's managing production, if that's your office manager, if that's a production coordinator, they're going to fill this out completely. So when the installer gets it, this is going to say furniture move. Okay, so we've got whatever it is. We've got 2,000 square foot house, and the price for that is going to be such and such. And then you do the math and say, I'm paying you $250 to move furniture, and I'm paying you $2 times whatever the square footage is. I'm paying you $750 for that. I'm paying you to install the stairs. And so ultimately at the bottom of this is a total of what I'm going to pay you to do this job. So that the installer gets, this is the work order, this is what we're doing, and this is what you're going to get paid to do it. Okay. And we'll get into more details around the work order later, but just so that you see, yes, that's coming. I'm not going to give the installer just a blank check and say, okay, go do this job and let me know how much it costs. No, we're going to have an agreement on what it costs before they ever get there. All right, good. Let's jump back here. So where to find people? Well, this is fun. Where have you guys already found people?
I found at Redco.
From where?
Redco, the shipping company.
Ah, okay. All right. Where else do you think you can find people?
I had a couple good ones come in through Career Plug.
Good. Okay.
I've had some this morning in B&I that the plumber has a guy, but he says he has like 10 guys. So he may be, now that you've told me that, I might better get away from him.
Well,
but
it's not a bad place to place to start, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly a good place to know that you've got that guy in your back pocket anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna at least talk to him next week.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, there's a couple other ones in there in B&I that are referring some to me.
So one of the places I would encourage you to find the place where installers go to buy their stuff. So it's not going to be Lowe's and Home Depot. It's going to be something, it's going to be a place that specifically sells to the trades. So for example, I mean, this isn't going to mean anything outside of the Southeast, Well, actually, they may actually be up in the Northeast too. There's a company called Fishman's, and Fishman's sells to the trades. They don't sell retail. They are specifically trying to get the trades into the building. So installers go to Fishman's to get their tools, to get supplies, and that sort of thing. But if you can find that company, oftentimes, I mean, it's old school, but they'll have a cork board up on the wall, and installers will have their names and phone numbers on it. I mean, it's a gold mine to start pulling people's names down. Sometimes you can find them at a Pro Source or at a Floor and Decor. Floor and Decor they'll give you names. The Floor and Decor doesn't install anything. They're like the Walmart of flooring. You walk in there, there's a bunch of stuff, but they don't install anything. But they might have people that they can refer you to. So again, I'm not going to walk in there with a Floor Coverings International shirt and say, "Hey, I'm your next big competitor. Let me steal your installers." But it does make sense for me to walk in and, without that and say, "Hey, I'm looking at maybe buying this tile. Have you got a good tile installer that you can refer to me if I do?" Okay, well, now it feels like they're going to make a sale maybe. Once you find one installer, it's a lot easier to find the next one, because oftentimes installers know other installers and they can give you names, right? So it's important to keep on good terms with your installers, because sometimes they can be a good resource for you. You're also going to find, anytime I've ever bought a car, it seems like, I went out and bought something that nobody else had, and the minute I drove it off the lot, now I see 80 of them, right? I mean, it's just, now you start to look for it. It's amazing how many vans, big white vans, you're going to start to see with carpet hanging out the back of them. And if you feel comfortable doing it, follow the van. I mean, that's an installer. And if especially if they pull into a gas station, walk up to them. I've found several just that way.
I'm meeting a guy tomorrow who I've seen driving in the neighborhood recently, and I just snapped a picture of his truck, so I didn't get a chance to follow him to drop my kids off. But he and I are meeting tomorrow, so that'll be interesting.
Unfortunately, this isn't something that Liz in the creep test. Unfortunately, this isn't something that you can always just go online and find somebody. I mean, there are resources. You might find somebody on Craigslist. You might find somebody through Career Plug. You might find somebody that way, but a lot of the installers are busy right now, and they're not out there. They're not out there looking for you. You've got to look for them. If you're close to a Shaw warehouse, man, showing up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning in front of the Shaw warehouse is brilliant, because all the installers are going to be there picking stuff up. I mean, it's just that it's easy to find them once you start looking. All right, we went through the installer agreement. One thing that I would highly encourage you to do, get a price list. Even if your installer doesn't have a price list, sit down with them and agree. This is what I'm going to pay you for luxury vinyl. This is what I'm going to pay you for hardwood. And agree to payment terms. So where'd Mike go? Mike Hudson. I know you've already started talking to installers and how they don't really want to work for the big box stores. Have they given you any insight as to how the big box stores pay them?
Yeah, all those bill above things that we've talked about in some of the competitive pricing examples, a lot of those bill above don't pass down to the actual people doing the work. That's been the chief complaint. And that was, when I first started I had a meeting with him yesterday. I first started talking to him about this stuff. We spent at least 45 minutes talking about, how he gets on a job and finds out that there's all this other work that he's got to do that he wasn't getting paid for in his whatever dollars per square foot that he had said that's what he would charge. So, and I said, look, my philosophy is the people who do the work need to get paid for the work that they do. So if you have to move a toilet, I'll pay you to move the toilet and then pay you to put it back. But this is what I'm willing to pay for that.
Did you happen to get into payment terms and how long they wait to get paid?
Yeah, that was another complaint, which I said, I want to make sure that people get paid on a timely basis, just as, I want to get paid on a timely basis, but, I take on the risk of payment from the customer, but you'll get paid for the work that you do in a timely manner when the job is done and complete.
So you don't necessarily have to pay installers more than other people around you? The installers show up at Home Depot and Lowe's because they know they can get work there. But I've never met an installer that just really loved working for Home Depot or Lowe's, because they're constantly screwing them out of something on the paycheck. They're constantly screwing them on payment terms, or holding stuff back in escrow and all kinds of crazy stuff. And what's really interesting is, we think, well, we've got to make sure we find the best of the best installers. What's funny is once they start working for you, all of a sudden they become the best of the best. Now, I say that with a little asterisk. I'm assuming that they have the technical skills that they need to do the job, right? But you're going to find oftentimes that now that they like working for you, that they actually do bring a much higher level of customer service. So I give you real life stories, right? I had a carpet guy named Sabino. Sabino was a great guy. He worked for me. He worked for Lowe's, and occasionally he'd work for Abbey Carpet, but not very often. He got most of his work from Lowe's. Well, he actually had a lot of complaints from Lowe's. I mean, like, not him to Lowe's, but Lowe's to him. He had a lot of customer complaints with Lowe's. And part of the reason is he'd show up to pick up his material. They wouldn't have everything ready for him, so he'd have to wait around. They'd finally pull everything together. He'd get to the customer's house. No, that's not the right carpet. He's got to go back and redo, and finally get the right carpet. Now the customer's upset. Now he gets into the house. He's upset. He doesn't want to be there because he knows Lowe's is going to cheapen. They're going to jip him out of something. So he's not really happy about being there. The customer's not happy because he's late showing up, but it wasn't really his fault. So he's upset. The customer's upset. Everybody's in a bad mood starting the job. Then he walks in and it's like, all these little knickknacks are still all over the place. You were supposed to have these moved already, and the customer's like, well, I didn't know if you were really going to be here today. So I mean, it ends up being a bad deal. Now, Sabina was a competent carpet installer. I started working with him. Another installer gave me his name. I started working with him, and it was like instant. I mean, it was instant, because I made sure that on his jobs, everything was there, that, the carpet, the pad, everything's ready to go. When he would pull up to the warehouse to pick his stuff up, we were there waiting for him to help him get the stuff loaded. I mean, it eventually got to where he would load himself. But in the beginning, my wife every so often would make tamales and have tamales waiting for him for lunch. I mean, it was just, and so when he would show up at the customer's house, he wanted to be there, right? He was excited. So if he showed up and the customer didn't have everything moved that they were supposed to do, he'd just do it. And he's like, oh yeah, this is fine. No worries, right? We'll take care of it. And it's a completely different mindset. When they want to work with you, that's the difference. It's not that magically, because you've got a Floor Coverings International shirt on, magically the installer now has more technical competence. That's not it. It's that you're showing them what it means to treat people right. You're showing them what it means to do customer service. You're probably never going to have to, well, I would say this, if you ever have an installer that you have to teach them the technical stuff, it's not the right installer. You just need to find somebody else. But to have an installer that, they had a bad attitude with Lowe's, well, they might have, but they might have a great attitude with us. All right, other contractors that you're going to need. This is just worthy of mention. These are people that are great to find in a B&I. You're going to need to find a general contractor. You're not going to need them very often, but one day you're going to walk into a house and the subfloor is so badly damaged that they're going to have floor joists and stuff removed or changed or whatever. So, I mean, that's not your game. That's going to be a general contractor, but you'll obviously do the floor. But you're going to need a general contractor that you can trust that won't steal the job away from you. You're going to need an electrician, not often, but once in a while. You'll probably need a plumber more than anything else on this list. A painter. Sometimes that painter might be working for you. Sometimes it might be that you're referring that painter to the customer, but you're going to want a good painter that you can work with. And a finish carpenter. We got into stairs last week, and all those banisters and balusters and all that stuff, that's all finish carpenter work. That's not going to be your installer. Now, your installer should be able to do baseboards and quarter round and trim. They really should be able to do that stuff, but you might have a finish carpenter on call if you've got like special trim that needs to be done or something. Let's see. So when we think about the delivery system, there's two pieces of this puzzle to make sure that a customer gets great service. One is the back office. And this is primarily your office manager's role, right? What does it mean to manage production from the office? The other is the job site piece. I already showed you where you can find this stuff. We're going to get into ordering product later, so I'm going to skip over this right this minute. This you guys saw when we were in Atlanta. So this is truly visual project management. It's not complicated. And I know you think, well, wait a minute, this is archaic and we could do something electronic. Yeah, you could, but right now I'm just trying to get you started. And down the road, you can decide if Asana or some other computer system makes sense for you. Right now, if you put these, you put these file folder boxes on the wall, you now have a way of managing production through your shop. I mean, it's just that simple. And then the installer board, you guys saw this as well. This is super easy to understand. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of, oh, look, there's Sabino. Yep. I'm not a huge fan of the whiteboard. I mean, it works. There's no question. It absolutely works. For me, I'm a much bigger fan of doing it in Excel and then putting it out on a shared drive where everybody can get to it, right? Because I mean, the whiteboard is great and everybody can see it and understand it and all that, but you have to be physically in front of it to interact with it. On the other hand, if I put this out on a shared drive, whether it's a Google Drive or SharePoint or some other sharing service, this makes it a whole lot easier for people to be able to interact with it when they're not in the office. Now, where can I get one of these? Well, same place as before. If I go back out to 411 and I'm in the production management system, I can scroll down and I can find down here, there's all these different things, but there is I know it's there, I'm just not seeing it. Sample production board right there. Then you can download that sample production board and it's going to look exactly like this one. It's just going to be blank. And you can fill that sucker out. The way this thing works, you've got the crews down the left, you've got the days of the week across the top, and the customer names go in the middle. And then you can do some color coding to say things like whether or not the schedule needs to be confirmed or in jeopardy, and you can put your other little boxes up here too.
Hey, Arlen.
Yeah.
Is this, if you use this format, can it be, sorry, I'm coming from like a Google environment. Can it be online in
Absolutely.
Microsoft? Yeah.
Yeah, put it out on Google Sheets or whatever. Yeah, 100%.
Well, you have to use Google Sheets, or does Microsoft stuff have an equivalent?
Yeah, Microsoft has well,
OneDrive.
Excel is Microsoft, but what is it? SharePoint or OneDrive or
OneDrive.
Yeah, under OneDrive.
Yeah,
Would
you have
people-
both
does
options
anyone-
with SharePoint and OneDrive.
Does anyone have a strong recommendation about using Google Docs for this or Google Drive versus Microsoft? Thanks.
I'm personally a fan of Google, but just because I've used it for a while, I think on mobile, there's just such an investment on making sure it works. So like, if you think this is something that you would like more access to on the fly, maybe just in a read-only capacity. But I think that's probably, Microsoft has figured it out too. It's just for me, if that's my background, I'm more comfortable in Google.
So in terms of getting stuff set up ahead of time, what do you need to make sure you're set up before you land that first job? Make sure you've got your little file folders on the wall. Decide if you want a whiteboard, go ahead and get it up on the wall. If you don't want a whiteboard and you're going to use electronic, whatever, it's fine. Just figure out where you want it to be. If it's Google, OneDrive, whatever, figure out where you want it to be and go ahead and get it out there. I would hand all of this over to the office manager and say, here, set all this up, because I want them to own it, right? I want them to have some ownership on this production system. I want them to be the ones that when I go out and land a job, I can come back into the office and hand them the job and say, okay, here, get this produced. So and of course, right now you're looking for installers. So that's why today I've tried to focus on finding those installers and what does it look like to interview them, and then just getting the stuff up on the wall or getting the stuff in place. And we're going to go into much more depth at launch around work orders and how that stuff works. All right, I'm going to shift gears slightly, and we're going to talk about commercial business. So when I say commercial business, what comes to mind?
Above 50K.
Okay, might be. All right, what else?
Schools, hospitals. You know,
Good.
anything you
Schools,
have to-
hospitals.
Buildings or places that people have to be productive and at work during the day. So you might maybe nights and weekend type project.
Could be.
work.
Yep, could be. What else might be classified as a commercial job for you guys?
A home builder.
Could be.
Family.
What is that, Leandro?
Multi-family building.
Oh, multifamily. Yep, 100%. Yep. All right. So
Spec
when we
home
think
bus-
about, go ahead.
I like to say spec home business.
Yeah, could be, right, if I'm working with the builder. So when we think about commercial segments, you know, commercial could be government work. You might end up getting involved in doing stuff, you know, like doing the floor in the whatever government building, retail stores. So you're probably not going to be terribly competitive doing the next Walmart or Target, but there might be Main Street retail that you get involved in. Office buildings, hospitality is big. So hotels, motels, then assisted living homes, right? Every time somebody moves out of an assisted living room, they have to go in and replace the flooring. So it's a golden opportunity to get involved with an assisted living home and be the company that always changes out their floor, or other healthcare facilities, veterinary offices. I mean, there's, you know, doctors' offices, dentist offices. There's all kinds of stuff that's classified as commercial. That I will warn you around commercial. When you start talking about commercial work, there are a ton of legal risks. Now, I'm not saying commercial work is bad. Don't get me wrong. Commercial work is fantastic. However, it is different. We normally suggest that you guys cut your teeth on residential work because there's a lot less risk in residential work than there is commercial work. If you absolutely, completely foul up a job in somebody's home, chances are you can probably fix it for less than 10 grand. I mean, that sounds horrible. I'm going to lose $10,000 on this job, maybe. But if you screw up a commercial job, I mean, you could be hundreds of thousands of dollars that's at risk, right? And I mean, it could, one bad, especially early on, one bad big commercial job could cost you your business. So that's why we say just you have to really understand the risk. So normally there's a lot of additional rules and permits and building codes and contract language and stuff that you've got to be aware of, and there's a ton of legal risk. There's also a ton of financial risk. So the complexity of commercial work tends to be much greater than the complexity of a residential work. It also means that not only is it the complexity of the work itself, but also the complexity of like payment terms. So oftentimes with commercial work, you might be working for a general contractor, and that general contractor is ultimately working for the customer. So you're not getting paid by the customer, you're getting paid by the general contractor, and you're negotiating payment terms with the general contractor, but they're trying to negotiate favorable payment terms for themselves from the customer. And so are you having to wait until the whole job gets finished before you can get finished? Or will the general contractor pay you along the way? And I mean, there's just, it adds a lot of different complexity when you start dealing with commercial work. I will tell you that the times that I've seen people get in trouble with commercial work, it's almost never about the floor. It's all the other stuff, which we don't think about normally. For example, if I'm going to do this commercial job, am I allowed to use the dumpster that's on site, or do I have to bring in my own dumpster? If I have to bring in my own dumpster, do I have to provide a safety partition around that dumpster? If this is a place where people work during the day, do we have to do the work at night? Do I have to provide special safety partitions? Do I have to, am I moving the cubicles? What's happening with all this stuff? That it absolutely can lead to a lot of scope creep unless you have absolutely nailed down every tiny detail of that job. Nothing can be left to be assumed. So my suggestion to you is this, because somebody on here is going to get a call within the next few months, maybe even weeks. Hey, this is a great 80,000 square foot, blah, blah, blah. And my questions to you are going to have less to do about the flooring, and they're going to have a lot more to do around all this extra stuff, right? And so that's really where you've got to be careful. My suggestion is when you decide you want to tip your toe into commercial, do that, just tip your toe in. Like, do one office, not an entire office building, or do a conference room, right? Maybe you find that doctor's office or dentist's office that's downtown, just that's local Main Street type stuff, and you're doing sort of a small version of commercial. You don't have a ton of commercial samples. And that's on purpose. You don't have a ton of commercial samples. You do have these little white books that are in the van where you've got some commercial carpets and you've got some commercial LVPs. I will tell you that on every job, you need to go back to your rep, whether it's Shaw, Mohawk, whoever, and get a special price for that commercial job. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, just a quick question, Arlen, because I clearly don't have it memorized, but isn't there something in the franchise agreement that basically requires us to ask permission to do a commercial job? And what's that process like if something falls in our lap, or what's
I think the franchise agreement says if it's more than $50,000 or something. And frankly, that phrasing, as I understand it, that phrasing is in there. If we were to ever sign up national accounts, like big national accounts with somebody, then there could be some dialogue back and forth. It's really there to protect you. What that process looks like is that you would simply call your ops coach. If that's Ron, if it's Jackie, if it's Joe, whoever it is at that time, you would simply call your ops coach and say, hey, I've got this opportunity. And and it's really so that it really sort of forces that extra set of eyes.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. You do also have some products that have, light commercial warranties on them. So this is a residential product. It's a residential LVP. This looks like it's Lamberton, maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is one of those that it's got a 10-year light commercial warranty. So you could put this in a commercial space. I wouldn't put it in a manufacturing plant, but if this is the waiting room of some, whatever it is, this is a waiting room of some little retail shop or a little boutique or something in your town, then great. It's just, you want to be really, really careful that when the day you decide you want to do some kind of commercial work, that you think not only about the floor, but you think about everything else that's around it. All right, see, there was my 3 minutes on commercial for today. All right, carpet proposal. So I'm going to dive into the tablet. Before I do, I'm going to get this out of the way. So I want you to write a proposal, minimum of 2 rooms and the stairs. You're going to pick carpet, and you're going to put carpet on the floor, and you're going to put carpet on the stairs. We're going to work through one together. I'm also going to ask you to go ahead and unbox, if you haven't already, unbox your carpet samples, and then categorize each one of those carpets. So who's the manufacturer? What's it look like, feel like? The same thing you've been doing with the hardwood, the laminate, the LVP. Get those inventory boards out so that you can start to work through what all those look and feel like. There's our code word for today. I'll come back to this so that it's also at the end. And your meeting on Thursday, your boot camp call on Thursday is going to be with Jalen, and you guys are going to be working through technology, which you're going to absolutely kill because you've been doing it.
Hey, Arlen, really quickly, can you go back to the homework real quick?
Yep.
Yeah, quick screen share.
All right. So let me stop sharing here, and I want to start sharing over here. And let's just go into InspireNet. Okay, I had started one earlier today, but I didn't get very far.
Arlen, do you want us to have our tablet or you just want us to watch you
No,
doing it?
you can just watch. It's fine. You can just watch.
Okay.
So I created one bedroom. I'm going to create another room. I didn't really mean to do it this way. Let's cancel that. I don't really care. I just want it big enough that I'm going to have seams in it. And this can be a living room. That's fine. And I'm not, at the moment, I'm just not even going to bother with doors and stuff either. This is just as sloppy as it gets. And then stairs, I'm going to leave the defaults like they are. I might change the width. We can call that 3 feet 6 inches wide. And it's just going to be boxed straight stairs. I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. And so now I've got my stairs here too. So I can select these and hit my space info, and I'm just going to leave it like it is. And come in here. So I had started playing with this earlier, but let's go. All right, so I'm going to put carpet in these two rooms. So I'm going to select these two rooms. Now I can't, as you guys figured out in the last one, I can't just then add the stairs. I have to do that in a second step. So that was part of the learning from last week. So I'm going to click on these two rooms. I'm going to set my install info, and I'm going to pick carpet. Now, one of the questions that I believe Mutu asked me, yeah, this is one of the questions that Mutu asked me. Up until now, I've asked you guys to put in like just a PG. But what if the customer wants a specific product, right? Okay, well, that's good. I'm gonna show you, you can put that in. There's two ways that you can do it. When I'm creating the rough draft, let's say, I normally just go in and pick a PG number, and I'm happy with that. Pick PG3, PG3 carpet, good, and I'm ready to go. So let's talk about install types, and then I'm going to change the floor again. Install type. Well, is it a standard install? Is it a pattern install? Obviously, those are going to pull in a different price from the price list. So you might have, maybe you pay $5 a yard for just standard carpet, but you pay $6 if it's a pattern. Okay. So I'm just going to leave it as standard. If there's a pattern, though, you're going to tell the tablet, is this a small pattern, a medium-sized pattern, or a large pattern?
Mm-hmm.
So on the back of the sample, on the back of your sample, there's a label, and that label tells you the size of the pattern. Now, this is a very, very simplistic formula. It's okay for now. It's a very simplistic formula. If I take the pattern size, and let's say this pattern is, it's 6 inches wide and it's 9 inches tall. So it's a 6x9 pattern. It's some sort of little diamond shape, right? So it's a 6x9 pattern. If I take the 6 plus 9, well, 6 plus 9 is 15 the last time I checked. So is that a small pattern? Well, no, it's not a small pattern, because a small pattern, the length plus the width would be less than 12 inches. It's less than, so 6 plus 9 is 15. It doesn't fit that. Well, is it a large pattern? Length plus width is greater than 24. Well, no, it's not greater than 24. It's 15. So I would consider that a medium pattern, right? So if I were doing a pattern carpet that was 6x9, I would make this pattern, and I would put in here that it's a medium-sized pattern. Okay, but I'm not. Today, I'm not going to bother with the pattern. I'm just going to call this standard, and I'm going to say there's no pattern here. What about my underlayment? Well, underlayment, I might be using a standard carpet cushion, a rebond with a moisture barrier, memory foam. Obviously, all those are things that are in your price list, that it's in your mobile accessories and labor price list that it's pulling in. So for today, I'm going to start with a rebond carpet. Now, trim work, normally you don't have a lot of trim work with carpet. I mean, you've got all the options, but normally if you're taking carpet out, you're not going to mess with the baseboards. You're just going to take the carpet out and you're going to put new carpet in, and the carpet is going to get tucked under the existing baseboards. So normally you don't have any trim work with carpet. Apart, maybe there's a transition somewhere that you have to deal with, but a lot of times if you're taking carpet out and putting carpet in, you don't have any transitions, you don't have any trim, and you probably aren't bringing any extra tack strips. It's easy. All right, so for right now, I'm going to leave that PG3 in here. and I'm going to hit the enter. And it tells me all the different things that we're going to have, so that's good. And then I need to add the stairs, so I'm going to do the same thing. Click on that, set install, and it's the same thing. This is going to be carpet, and memory foam is good, and we're going to come over here and pick the same PG3 because I want it all in the same thing. And everybody's happy, happy, happy. So let's hit complete option and look at a couple of things here. First of all, this is a small job. And by small, I mean it's less than 100 square yards of carpet. This is, if you look at the adjusted quantity column, this is 88.98 square yards of carpet. So I'm considering this a small job. Well, for a small job, the default, I'm not saying it's right, I'm saying the default is a 20% waste factor. Okay, so I know that I've got 20% worth of waste here. Okay, that's good. But I don't know if that's right or not. That's just what the tablet gives me as a default. Footnote, if it was a big job, it would give you an 18% waste. Okay, again, I don't know if it's right or not, but it's a number. So soft surface freight is in fact variable. So I might have my cost right or not. I can play with that in the price list manager, but the fact that it's just multiplying a number by the cost, that's right. I don't need to play with it. Let's see what else we've got. I meant for both of them to have the same carpet cushion, so that's okay. Now you'll notice at the bottom of this, there's some icons. There's a plus icon, there's a folder icon, there's a pencil, and there's a calculator icon. Now we haven't seen the calculator yet. So I'm going to click on the calculator button, and it's going to pop up this box, which asks me, which direction do you want to seam this? Do you want the seams to go vertical in the rooms, or do you want the seams to go horizontal in the rooms? So front, back, left, right, all this time we've been talking about measuring spaces where you stand facing the front door so that all the rooms are in the same direction. This is why. So that when it seams, you can say this is either going in one direction or the other direction. Well, I'm going to leave it as optimal because I want it to choose the least amount of scrap for me. For the stairs, waterfall means that it just comes over the top and it goes down to the bottom of the riser. So there's a gap between the carpet and the stair behind it. Some people call that Hollywood. I personally like the full wrap look so that the carpet goes over the nose and it gets tucked in underneath. So I'm going to leave it with the full wrap. If there was a pattern, and in this case there's not, I would put my pattern in the horizontal repeat and the vertical repeat. So like if it were 6 inches by 9 inches, I would do it that way. In this case, there's no pattern, so I'm going to leave that blank for now. And this is a 12-foot wide roll of carpet. Good. So I hit yes. And I get this alert. The waste factor is below 15%. Okay. So let's see what it did. It gave me a waste factor of 8.5%. Now, what does that warning mean? That warning means that, when you get below 15% on carpet, you kind of have to be comfortable that, yes, this is right. So let's look. There's a new icon. The plus, the folder, the pencil, the calculator. Now there's something that looks like the letter L. I look at that, and now I can see my seaming diagram. Okay, so it tells me that there's a seam in that bedroom. There's a seam in the living room. We're going horizontally here. It tells me that I need to order 59 feet. So I see linear length, 11.9 by 59 feet. 11.9 is right. We've given it a 3-inch margin. Okay, so that's on purpose. So I would need to order 59 feet of carpet, and you can see where the stairs are going to be these little C5, C6, C7. Those are where my little stair cuts are going to come from. All right, but I don't know that I want the seams there, so I can rerun this, and instead of letting it pick horizontal, I'm going to force it to pick vertical. And what do we come up with? We come up with 8.9% waste. So it's not that much more. Let's see if the seaming looks better. Well, I don't know. Now it becomes a preference. In the bedroom, that seam is now all the way over to one side. No matter what we do in the living room, we're going to have a seam. So, you know, you've been in the house. You can decide, does it make more sense for this seam to run one way versus the other way? If you said, you know what, that warning bothers me, and I don't, you know, it keeps telling me that I've got too little waste, I want to add some waste. That's fine. I'm going to hit the little calculator again. And this time, there's the box that says vertical. The next box over says additional waste. Well, I want to add, you know what? I'm going to add an extra 3 points of waste. Why did I pick 3? I don't know. You could pick 4. 4 points of waste. Okay, good. So now I'm going to run it again. That's great. And it tells me that instead of 8.94, I've got 12.94. So what am I ordering in terms of carpet? Well, my PG1 carpet is going to be, I'm going to order 83.75 square yards of carpet. I went through that quickly. Let me stop and ask what questions you guys have, because I know you've already started to play with this some.
I guess my question is, how does it start out with 20% waste? And then, because I would think that it would automatically like do an optimal of configuration for the carpet, which would be the initial 20% waste. So I'm confused as to how it starts with 20, and then when you go in and say it's optimal, it reduces it to 9.
Good question. The 20 is simply a default that's written in a table in the programming. So when it comes in with the initial 20, it has not run a seaming diagram yet. It is just giving you a number. Okay, it's a starting point, and it's just gave you a number. Now, what I didn't say, which I should say, in order to run the seaming diagram, in order to even run it, you have to be connected to the internet. You have to be connected to the cloud. Now, that could be, you could hotspot your phone, your tablet might have connectivity, whatever. But in order for that seaming program to run, you have to be connected. So one of the things about the default is set most of the time, 90% of the time. That default is set so that it's more than what you need. So if you were ever in a remote area and you couldn't get your hotspot to work or whatever, you know what? You could just take the default and feel comfortable that this is going to be enough. It might be more than enough. I might end up going back to the office and trimming it back before I ordered anything, but I know that I should be covered. Okay. There was another question.
You always want to do the seaming diagram regardless, because that's where you're really going to get your more true estimate.
Yes and no. For today, I'm going to say yes. And in about 3 months, I'm going to explain why no might be a better answer. Okay, but for today, yes, you're going to run the seaming diagram.
Okay.
Arlen, would you ever run a seaming diagram different for one room? So like vertical for one room and horizontal for another?
So in the tablet, you can't. The tablet only allows you to run it one direction. Okay. Now, there's another software which we'll cover later that then you can, and you can tweak it a little bit more. Remember that what you're trying to do with the tablet, and I'm going to say this over and over again, the tablet is not meant to be a production tool. The tablet was meant to be an estimating tool. So all you're really trying to do with the tablet is make sure you have enough. Later, you can figure out if you're going to seam one room one way, another room a different way. But just know this, you can't do that if those two rooms are touching one another, right? So like in a hallway and in a bedroom, the bedroom leads into the hallway, those carpets have to run the same direction or that seam is going to look horrible. But if it turns out that the bedroom is upstairs and the hallway you're doing is downstairs, it doesn't matter. It's just that the tablet doesn't support it. It's fine. The tablet's going to get you close. It's going to get you really close. And then you can dial it in a little closer when you actually go into production with it. Good. Yeah, Mutu.
How do you decide the seam, which is better, horizontal or vertical?
Well, you have to decide which is better. So if you were in the house, right, you were in the house and you remember in the house that, oh, in this bedroom, they have a dresser, they have furniture that's covering this seam. Okay, then maybe this is the right way to do it. Right? So you're the one that's in the house and you get to say, okay, well, you know what, in this living room, no, this doesn't look good. That's not going to look good for that living room. I think I have to turn it the other way. And then you rerun it and turn it the other way.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm gonna suggest that when you're first coming up, your initial estimate, stay in step three. In step three, when you're running through the house and you're measuring everything and you're putting together your rough draft, I'm gonna suggest that you leave yourself with a PG something, PG1, PG3, whatever it is, right? That you just put the PG in to start with. But now Mutu asked, how do I put the exact product in? How do I put the exact product in? Well, I've done all this work already. Notice at the bottom, there's several icons. You got the plus, the folder, the pencil, the calculator, the L. Then the one next to the L is this switch button. It's the two arrows that crisscross. So if I click on that switcheroo button, now I can put the exact name. So has anybody picked a favorite carpet yet?
No.
Nope. All right. Well, I'll pick one that's at the early in the alphabet because I know you'll get to it quickly. I'll pick admiring. And I want admiring 2. Okay. And let's see. And you'll notice that not only do you have all the different, you've got the car, you've also got the actual colors. So I want admiring 2 Marina. So that's the one. Okay. And watch what happened when I hit that at the top. Now, instead of saying PG3, it actually has the exact product in it. So it just switched the PG3 to the admiring. You don't have to do it there, by the way. If I go back and I create a new option, let's create a new option. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do one room here. So I'm going to click on, I'm just going to click on the living room and I'm going to hit set install information. So I'm going to pick carpet. If I know already somehow that what's wanted is admiring, I don't have to do the PG to start with. I can actually just do it from here. I don't remember what it was. Marina. Good. So that's fine. And I can do it from here. And now I've got, I just did one room, but set install or complete option and admiring 2 is there instead of the PG. So I can pick the product from the very beginning, but I don't know if that's the one they really want yet. Or I can put the PG in and I can hit the switch button to switch it.
Hey, Arlen.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like to me, and maybe something else is going on, but when you switched it on the whole thing on the first time you did it, and you switched it within this page, it looked like the nominal waste factor went to 0.
I saw the same thing.
Yeah. So can you go back and look at that? I was like, why would it do that? Go back to your first option. And it was just because you switched
look at that. Well, that's not right. Let's rerun the seaming diagram and get that fixed.
Okay.
Good catch.
So that might
I didn't
just
notice
be
that.
a glitch. Yeah, it just caught my eye. You know,
good
as
job.
Okay.
I will have to. I'll have to
It
report
happened when
that.
I did it
That's
on
a new
mine
one.
too. Just as an FYI, I was following along and it did the same thing.
So that's I've got to document that one for Ryan. That's a new one. I hadn't seen that before.
Okay.
Good catch.
You're teaching us well.
That's right. You got to pay attention to the details, right?
Yeah.
All right. So there was another question that came up, and that was, how do I add a line item? Like I need to add something. How do I add something to this proposal? Well, you could do it a couple of different places. So let's say at the bottom of this section, you'll see the icons at the bottom, the plus, the folder, the pencil. Let's hit the plus. If I hit the plus, I don't know what I'm going to add, but I can search for product type and I can say, I don't even know. I don't know what would be appropriate here, but I don't know. Maybe I need a transition for whatever reason. Transition. Good. I need a transition strip. And the amount is going to be a manual amount. And I'm going to put in, I don't know, 6 feet with 0 waste. Yep. Okay, good. And so when I come back out of this, it's going to add that line item to the proposal. or it should. I don't know why it's thinking so hard. But that's how you add an item, is you simply click the plus button and you add it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've made it mad somehow. There might be another one. Let's see what happens. Oh, there it is. I hit the back button and it's there. Did it mess with my waste factor? No, the waste factor is still okay. And there's my transition strip at the bottom. Now you can add a line item within that section, or if it was like a general thing. So that line item is now specific to, it's specific to this option. It's specific to that section. Hit complete install again, a complete option again. Now I want to add a general line item. So something that whether I do this room or different rooms or whatever, doesn't matter. So it might be that under general line items, I hit my plus, and maybe this time I'm looking for an area rug. And I'm looking for, let's see, there's one called Roxy. It's in there. Yep, so good. So Roxy, and I just want one area rug. And so I can add that line item below the line, right? So now that's just a general line item that I can add. Okay. So you can add line items by just hitting the plus button.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions about this? Otherwise, I'm going to let you guys take off and run with it. All right. So that I get this. Yes.
This isn't about this, but you had mentioned finding a local source for your carpet. I forget what it's called. Like we're on the stairs where you have open ends, your stairs aren't boxed. So you said in training, you had mentioned some installers are good enough that they
can just tuck it.
Or tuck it, but it's not called a seam. What is it called?
Did I say something about maybe using Z bars?
I don't think so. It was more about the edges of a carpet to keep it from.
Oh, binding, carpet binding.
I'm sorry. So where do you suggest we find somebody to do the binding?
Well, the first thing I'd do is I'd find a good carpet installer and then ask him where he gets his stuff bound, and see if they know that way. You might get lucky on Google. You might get lucky on Craigslist. It might be possible that you walk into a carpet retailer and that they would tell you who they use for binding. I doubt it, but it's possible. But honestly, your carpet installers probably know where that guy is. Now, the retailers will tell you, oh, we can do binding here, but they don't really do it there. They send it to some guy that's doing it in his garage. And you're trying to find that guy that's doing it in the garage. All right, so there's the makeup word for today, or the makeup phrase. Don't go for the one. And again, your next boot camp call is going to be on Thursday with Jalen. I look forward to seeing all these carpet proposals coming in. Keep them coming. Keep watching. So one of the things I encourage you to do is when I send feedback to somebody, don't just look at your own feedback. Look at everybody else's. I mean, look, in school, you were told don't look at other people's test papers. This is where I want you to look at people's test papers, right? I mean, I want you to look at what I'm telling other people, because I'm gonna get tired of saying fix your hard surface freight, right? By now, everybody should know fix your hard surface freight. So I want you guys to be able to look at somebody else's and say, oh, I would have found this, I would have found this, I would have found this. Right? This is part of being competitive, is you've got to be able to look at one and be able to see, okay, this is different. Now, you weren't in the house, so you may not know what the subfloor is, or you may not know this or that. That's fine. You should start looking at other people's proposals as well and seeing, does this make sense to me? Good.
Alan, I have a question.
Yes.
And that may be too late to ask for a question, but what do waste represent to the carpet?
What does the waste represent to the carpet?
Yeah, like how we know if we're having like the right number for the waste.
If you run the seaming diagram, you'll have the right number.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good deal, everyone. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for Inspired Sale with all the design associates. And yeah, and send all your proposals over. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, Arlen.
Thank you.